So, with the new Superman movie on the way, I have a ton of Superman content I want to make for this channel over the next coming months. Most of it being, closer to June, July ish time. I will be reviewing all the Superman movies and a few other Superman projects. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet, but you can stay tuned for that stuff. Um, but one of my big projects I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about every episode, not every episode, but every season of Smallville in a lead up to the movie. So, what we're going to essentially do with this review series is every single month, starting this month being September, uh, I'm going to review one season of Smallville each month. So, if you really like the show Smallville, subscribe because there'll be one new review every single month talking about each individual season, and then when I'm done with that, that will be it. Basically, we're going to do all the Smallville content. So, and yeah, so here's, by the way, this box set. If you're a huge Smallville fan, best way to own the show. It is gorgeous. It's got all 10 seasons in individual Blu-ray cases. Look how nice that looks. And you get this cool, nifty little thing here with two DVDs. Tons of special features all listed there. You can pause. But yeah, just wanted to shout that out because I do love this box set. My dad actually got me this for my birthday a couple years back, and I never really decided to crack into it until now. So, I've seen the show before, but I was waiting for it to be closer to Superman stuff. So, let's get into the first season of Smallville. So, I should give you some background if you don't know what Smallville is. Essentially, Smallville was if you know about the Flash, Green Arrow, Supergirl, all the CW shows we have now, Smallville was the beginning of that. Not actually, right? Because it's not set in the same continuity as those shows, but it was the building ground of what all those shows would eventually be. Smallville is the best, probably, superhero show ever put to the TV screen. Maybe ever. I mean, not in terms of production value or being most comic accurate, but I think, this is the longest running superhero show at, I believe, 172 episodes and 10 seasons. And, there's nothing been quite like Smallville since it ended. We've gotten close with shows like Superman and Lois, but the show's something different. And, so basically the concept of this show is it's Superman's origins of him being a teenager and eventually show went on so long that he was able to be a young adult, but basically it was him growing up to eventually become the man in tights, Superman, right? And it's a slow journey with this show to get there, but I think that's beautiful. We'll talk about that more as the show goes on, but because this is a CW show, especially in the early 2000s or late 90s, when this first season came out, I forget what year, but because of the time period the show came out, this isn't even going to have half the CGI or action scenes that the Flash does or shows like that, right? It's a very different show. So a lot of this show is more character based and more drama focused, and when you hear that in a Superman story, you think that would be boring, but I think Superman is the perfect character to do this with, because people really need to understand Superman is a human. And what I mean by that is, even though the dude is an alien from outer space that crash landed here on Earth, that is his origin. But also the other part of his origin is he was adopted by Ma and Pa Kent and raised as this human child with superpowers. Yeah, he is more Clark Kent than he is Superman, essentially. He has vulnerabilities, he has whatever. And so the best Superman stories aren't the ones that crack into the powers and the excitement and the action. They're ones that take a look behind the man in the suit. It isn't about Superman saving the day. It's about what's Clark Kent up to today, what's, his struggles. And so this show is not the most comic accurate, right? But it does get to the heart of this character. And so what I really liked about this first season, where is that it really does a great foundation of building intrigue with this show. Where, as this season starts, it's kind of like you get a couple episodes in there that are classics because of their imagery. Like this shot right here comes from one of the earlier episodes of the season, right? But they just, it's all high school melodrama things, and as the show goes on, you start peeling layers, or as the season goes on, I should say, they start peeling layers back of some of these characters that make you more interested. And also, at first, the show definitely tried to be Monster of the Week type with some of the villains and different stuff. And as the season went on, they got darker with some of the storylines and more emotional and peeled layers of these characters, Like at the beginning of the season, I'm not that interested in the character of Chloe, but by the end of the season, I love the character of Chloe. Lana, not so. Lana, I wasn't super interested in her character, but as the season goes on, you really peel back the layers of her character, and I like to grow her. Lex Luthor and Clark have a pretty great dynamic from the beginning of this season, but it really builds upon itself the more the season goes on. So I would say the first 7 episodes of the show really did grab me. I think the worst one is the Amy Adams episode. I thought that episode was just terrible. It's like a horror themed episode and it's just, I don't know what they're going for. Did not care for that episode. And so yeah, that was a big thing for me. I did not care for a lot of that stuff within that season or that episode. In fact, that's one thing I want to talk about with all these seasons is I am gonna do like best episodes and least favorite episodes. That's my least favorite of the season. But yeah, I think it does a great foundation. I think Clark and Lex, especially in this first season, have such a great dynamic because essentially they start out as friends, and you know where it's going to lead. But there's a great episode where you're getting flashbacks to Lex at this nightclub in this season, and there's some drama that went down. Maybe he killed somebody or something going on. There's all these hints to Lex past, and you really don't understand any of it. But I think there's a great scene. There's 2 great episodes of this season that there's 3 actually that are my favorites of this season. It's that episode with the nightclub. It's the first real indication that something's up with Lex, and maybe there's some distrust that we, the audience, should have with the character, along with Clark himself should also be a little weary of Lex. And it's a really dark episode. Though I will say, even though I say words like dark or things like that, this show is not dark. It just has some thematic elements and darker themes, right? But for the most part, this show isn't cynical at all. It's very joyful. There's very few episodes that end on a sour note. It's all hope and optimism. And again, that's what the root of Superman as a character is. But that's a great episode. The other great episode is the one where Clark gets like an adopted brother. There's a whole thing with that. And then eventually he helps the kid get adopted. I mean, he wasn't going to end up with a brother because, we know the story of Superman, right? He doesn't have a brother. But seeing Clark have this bond with a younger brother almost makes you wish he did have one. And that kid is actually a pretty good actor in the episode, I would say. And that there's a great moment in that episode where he looks at Clark and he says, "Hey, I know you trust Lex, but you should be careful of him. There's a lot of things you don't know about him." And Clark just goes, I like to hope there's a little good in everybody." And that right there is just so beautiful. because that is Clark's character. Or Superman as a character, that's the heart of the character. Always looking for the best in everybody, always looking for the bright side, always seeking hope and optimism. Um, it's just great. That's a great moment that really gets the root of that character. And that's why I think, I will say, I guess spoilers for season 10, we're not even there yet. We're still in season 1. But even though Clark doesn't get in the suit at all in the show, as much as people would have wanted that, at the end of the day, Tom Welling does a great job of still embodying that character, even when he's not wearing the cape and flying around, And so I just think that that's great. Next up, and then the other episode, this is one of my favorites. I think this is episode 18 or 19. This is the one where the principal dies and Chloe and Clark finally get together by the end of the episode. It's just a really sweet episode, and I just really like that, setting up that dynamic. And there's something about that cover of Time After Time, that song, and just that shot of like Clark standing in the rain looking at Lana next to it in the graveyard. It's really a beautiful moment, and just there's something about it. And and I think Smallville does such a great job of building its world of characters in this first season too. Like, yeah, the principal had only been in a few episodes, and I'm forgetting his name, right? But I felt something when that character was no longer around anymore. It just felt sad, like a piece of the world was missing. So when characters come in and out of the show for various reasons, it does actually hurt a little bit. It makes you sad and a little bit frustrated. So there's just something about that. And so I really enjoyed this first season. I think it gets to the heart of Superman as a character. It builds its world enough. And the way this season ends, of course, with that to be continued episode with Lana being stuck in the tornado. And, Clark, Lex, and what's going on with his dad and the plant and all that stuff. It really leaves you with a lot of intrigue for the next season, and it's just a great first season of a show, and it's probably one of the best first seasons of a show I've seen in a long time. It just does such a good job of building this world, these characters, their dynamics, and setting up the future for a show that would be entirely different by the end of its run, 10 seasons later. But we'll get to that when we get to that, but still. Join me next month for our talk of Season 2.